Fear, anguish, chaos. Rise and feed on this email, shall we? Oh, that's an interesting Q&A. By the way, you can still send in Q&As. We've got a little bit of time left. I'm going to do this email, then I'm going to do Cataclysm Q&A, then I'm going to end the show. Sounds like a reasonable plan to me. I'm going to go back to playing Civilization 5. I haven't really got to game much this week. But I'm probably going to do another Heroic. I'm going to try Heroic Dead Mines. We'll see if we can get it, because there are no good videos out of that yet. Yes, there are no good videos out of that yet. Some people rush them out, and I hate it when people do that. And it's not just because I'm like, oh god, they got it out before me, big deal. It's because they're shortchanging their goddamn viewers. I watched this video from some channel, I'm not going to name names, that are supposedly, very professional about things, and I could barely see what was going on. For one thing, it was badly encoded. Two, it didn't even have the right aspect ratio. It had garbage commentary that was evidently done over vent or whatever. You couldn't even hear it. No editing to speak of. It's like, oh god, man. Can we not have some standards? YouTube deserves a better class of troll. And I'm going to give it to them. Anyway, email in for the Cataclysm Q&A, themurloc@gmail.com, or you can leave a comment on the Facebook page. That will allow you to get a question in as well, as I have pointed out. And there's quite a few of them as well, excellent. Or if you've got a short question, you can send it over Twitter. Yes. Yes, indeed. Also, just to ensure that I give out important information, I must point out that I am now following Dr. Mundo on Twitter. His Twitter account is @Mundoverse. Yes, indeed, @Mundoverse. If you've never played League of Legends, you probably don't know who this guy is, but he's recently got a fantastic new skin called Corporate Mundo. Mundo is some kind of abomination thing, but he's got this really kind of cutesy thing going on. Mundo go this way, Mundo go that way. This is Corporate Mundo. Corporate Mundo, yes, he runs a corporation, don't you know? And he will downsize you and everyone else. And he has a Twitter account. And his two latest tweets are as follows. Mundo wonders why Bosnian girl would throw puppies into a river. Slingshot and brick wall way funnier. This is all in caps, of course. Mundo doesn't mind people making fun of how Mundo talk. Mundo doesn't mind their caved-in face afterwards, either. Mundo is amazing. We likes the Dr. Mundo. We loves the Dr. Mundo, so go follow Mundoverse. Yes, indeed, Mundoverse on Twitter. Okay. So I'm going to read those emails that I said I was going to read. We'll discuss them a little bit, do another music break. And then we can, of course, end the show. Oh, by the way, apparently we're currently running 17 chat servers to keep up with the load. Oh, Jesus. Right. Let's have a look at this email, then. Because I liked it. And it's actually kind of relevant to what I was discussing. Where did I put it? There we go. There we go. How hard is hard? It's from Bryant Grease. Or Grave Silence. He's on the Scryers server. And he says this. Good morning. No. First of all, I appreciate your videos and feedback. Certainly keeps me entertained in the build-up to Cataclysm. My question is this. If they tune the raiding experience appropriately, and keeping in mind there will be both regular and heroic versions, what percentage of the wild population would you expect to conquer the initial rounds of raids on normal mode? Or the last set, Deathwing, which one presumes. One potential answer is anyone who wants to raid and is willing to develop the skills and put in the time to become a good raider should be able to raid. Yes. That's the correct answer. If they aren't willing to put in that time learning their class and learning basic raid skills, then they really don't want to raid. Also a good point. Fair enough, but what percentage of WoW's population would be willing to put in time to conquer appropriately difficult raids in your estimation? It's such a difficult call to make, isn't it? Because there have been arguments. Blizzard has argued that Wrath was a success in terms of raiding, because it got more people into raiding. Yeah, because it just turned raids into glorified 5-mans that you didn't have to pay attention to. It's of course got more people in there. It's the same argument where you made arenas in TBC the go-to place to get really easy gear by doing nothing at all. You could lose 10 games a week and get gear that was better than raid gear. And you know what? People went there too. Did you claim arenas were a success in TBC on that basis? I certainly hope not, because they weren't. People were not going there because they enjoyed it. They were going there because that was the place to get gear, and they wanted some kind of fulfillment in their WoW playtime. And how do you fulfill yourself? A lot of people, and I'm not going to blame them for this because I feel this way as well. Admittedly, my desire for epics is tied in to the desire to have to work for them in order for them to actually be worth anything in my estimation. But, yeah, a lot of people prioritize getting the best gear. Getting the best gear is a nice means to an end. So they're going to take whatever's available. It's the same reason that I do the daily heroics, or at least I used to when I used to play. I don't play anymore. By the way, if you see any Total Biscuit, Total Halibut, or Cynical Brit on live servers, both US and EU, or on the PTR, it is a fake. Because I don't play on any of those. Faker's gonna fake, folks. That's just the way of it. Now, what percentage? If they were forced to get better, a reasonable percentage. I do not believe that in order to enjoy World of Warcraft, you have to see everything within it. Just as I have games on my shelf that I have not beaten, I do not feel ripped off by that. And for God's sake, I haven't beaten Demon Souls yet. I've beaten maybe a quarter of the levels of Demon Souls. Do I feel ripped off by Demon Souls? No! What about all these other games that I haven't beaten? I mean, hell, let's just have a look at my PS3 pile. 50 Cent, Blood on the Sand. I've only beaten half that game. Do I feel ripped off by 50 Cent, Blood on the Sand? Actually, no, and you should probably play it, because it's freaking hilarious. What else have I got? What's on my PC? Oh, here we go. Ninja Gaiden Sigma. Let's see, how many levels have I beaten in that? 2. Do I feel ripped off by Ninja Gaiden Sigma? No. What else have I got? Valkyria Chronicles. I have put 35 hours into that game, and it's about 80. I have not beaten half the game yet. Do I feel ripped off by that game? No. And all these other games that I have not beaten. Do I feel ripped off by any of them? No, I do not. Why? Because in order to get the full value out of your play experience, you don't have to play and see everything within the game. There are a lot of people that are completionists, but there are many more that are not. You can just see the stats. With most games, most people don't finish them, with the exception of, like, a 2.5 hour game like Modern Warfare 2. How could you fail to finish that game? So bloody short. You don't need to beat the entire game to get a good enough amount of enjoyment out of it to justify the amount of money you've paid. As to how many people would be willing to put in the effort, well, here's the thing. With WoW, you're paying a monthly subscription, so at some point you're going to come around to the fact that you really want to do more than just doing daily quests. And you might actually be forced to raise the bar. Blizzard, I think, sorely underestimates their ability to socially engineer the entire goddamn player base in one foul swoop. They can do it, and they have done it. Wrath is a prime example of them socially engineering the player base over the course of 2 years to be worse. Because they provided them with bad content. So what exactly did you expect to happen? And just look at the difference. I would actually like to see this now, because the problem is you can't really, can you? Because it's infuriating. Because they put all those buffs for you in Icecrown Citadel, it is impossible, and I do mean impossible, to determine just how many people played normal and just how many people played heroic, because they buffed it to ludicrous levels and now everyone can just blitz their way through it. But if I recall correctly, back around the time when it wasn't buffed, i.e. for maybe the first 8 months of the bloody dungeon. Nah, 6 months would be about accurate. I think it came in November, so that instance has been around for 10 months. That's been the peak of the raid content for 10 months, with the exception of that one boss gimmick, Hallion. The vast majority of people didn't get to hard mode. But here's the thing. If that was all they had to do, would they do that? Yeah. Thing is, people wanted to be in hard mode. The problem was that the gap, because of the way that they'd engineered the game, was so large that actually making that leap was really difficult. And I've said this before. Blizzard in Wrath have only catered to 2 groups of people. Hardcore elite and terrible players. Those are the 2 groups they've catered to. And in the middle, there is nothing. This giant expanse of nothing, which is actually where the majority of the player base resides. It is not just an on-off switch. It is not a binary position. I don't know why Blizzard thinks otherwise. In fact, they admitted that they now don't. They've obviously learned something, because in the, what was it, the GDC convention, I believe, Tom Chilton came out and said, we want multiple difficulty levels beyond just one and the other. Yeah, that's the way you do it. It's a proper way to make a game. If you engineer your content from the very start to elicit a particular reaction from your player base, you will get it most of the time. If you require people and give no other option than to up their game in order to continue to enjoy, they will do it. They will. I have very little faith in the player base, but I do have faith in one thing, and that is pure personal greed. Now, that pure personal greed applies to two things. Firstly, it applies to the fact that people want to squeeze the maximum amount of enjoyment out of their $15 a month that they can. Do I blame them for that? Hell no. That's being smart. That's being a smart consumer. And the other part is people are greedy for purples. And if you make the only way to get purples hard rating that they actually have to be better at, they will do it. Why? Because the lure of the purple is too strong. It's too shiny, folks. They will do it because they will have no choice. What else are they gonna go play? Final Fantasy XIV? Pfft, come off it. Age of Conan? No. Warhammer? No. Eve? Yeah, right. Eve will chew someone with that attitude up within 5 seconds and spit them out in tiny pieces. Tiny pod-shaped pieces. Where are they gonna go, Blizzard? What are you scared of? Why are you terrified that your player base is suddenly gonna get up and leave? It's never happened! Every new game that's come out has lasted a month. It's had to be like, oh god, yeah, we're gonna go here. Yeah, screw Blizzard. Finally, the WoW killer is... Oh, no, it isn't, is it? I remember the glorious launch days of Warhammer Online, or should I say the terrible launch days of Warhammer Online, where people were like, yeah, this game's awesome! Bye, WoW! WoW is finally dead. This is the nail in the coffin of WoW. A month later, there were server mergers, and it was a ghost town. And now it has a dedicated, loyal following, but that's about it. Very small, dedicated, loyal following. Every game is like this, every MMO. And yeah, something will come along eventually, and it might be the Old Republic that challenges that position. But you never know, because if you go by looking at the past, everything so far has failed. Which means that Blizzard can afford to be ballsy. Is probably the best word. They can be ballsy. They can afford to do that. Because their player base is not going to leave them. And they do have the power to socially engineer. And they should. They should absolutely 110% socially engineer. Right, there was one more email that I'm going to cover very quickly. Let's see. We'll do this. I'll go to a break, and then we'll do some shout-outs, ladies and gentlemen. Sounds like a good idea to me. Where was that email? Aha! Get back here. It's running away from me. It's fleeing and screaming for mercy. Dear host of shows!
You dare look upon the host of souls! I shall devour you all!
Out of all the heroic dungeons in Wrath of the Lich King, the good, the bad, and the utterly terrible, which is your personal favourite, or at least, which is the one you felt sucked the least? I personally like the Pit of Sauron. I really liked the what the hell was it? It was, oddly enough, the one that had the Host of Souls in it. What was it? The Forge of Souls. Yes, Forge of Souls. Pit of Sauron was pretty cool as well, but I think it's an unfair comparison, though, because those were actually really good, and I did an entire show on how good those dungeons were. They were really well designed. How about we talk about the best one, the best Wrath of the Lich King dungeon that is not, in fact, one of the final three that were brought in much later? Which one sucked the least? Oh. Nexus was pretty good. Culling of Stratton wasn't. That was terrible. Violet Hold certainly wasn't. That was awful. Utgard Keep sucked. Utgard Pinnacle was alright. That's not terrible. Halls of Stone sucked. Halls of Iron, it was alright. I think probably the Nexus, honestly. It was just cool. There were a lot of really interesting bosses in there, and the mechanics on the final boss. Just think about that for a second, and just think about, compared to the Vortex Pinnacle, how much better the mechanics on the final boss of the Nexus are to that. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. The Nexus is my final answer to that. Big fan of the Nexus. My name is Total Biscuit, and you are listening to Blue Please here on CynicalBrit.com. Cataclysm Q&A coming up right after this break, I think. And in the meantime, I'm going to play some fantastic music. What kind of fantastic music shall I play, you might ask? Huh? Oh, I can think of a few things. I'm thinking a bit of Gamma Ray. Oh yes, good old-fashioned power metal cheese. I'll be right back after this, folks. Enjoy.